Hey everyone, welcome back to What Next, and today we're going to go over the 1979 cult classic, The Warriors. So again, if you haven't seen this movie, please go ahead and do so before you won't be disappointed. Yes, parts of it can be a little random, but at the end of the day, you're going to watch this movie and you'll get it. It's one of those movies where you just have to see it. Like you can just sit here and explain it, but I think by the time you get done explaining everything, you probably would have just had enough time to go watch the movie. So, for those of you who have watched this, now, I went ahead and rewatched this again the other day just to go ahead and give myself a refresher on this for this clip. And I want to say the questions I had probably then, the last time I watched it was, I don't know, years ago, but watching it again now, I realize I had probably the same questions, if not maybe a couple more, now that I'm a little older and understand a little more about what's going on. So, as you see in the poster, the poster shows 6 warriors, which is a little misleading because the movie actually starts with 9, and they lose a couple along the way. So this is where you get into this movie and you realize that there's a lot of plot holes that were just kind of never answered. There was a lot of movies or storylines that just kind of stopped during the movie. Like some of them are a little weird, but I don't know if they were maybe trying to plan a sequel or maybe just the way. I mean, it's a book made into this movie, so maybe I should go try to read the story. Maybe it answers a little more of these questions along the way, but we're sticking with the movie. So we're going to start with our main character, Swan, right here in the middle. So Swan is the warlord, basically making him the second in command to Cleon, who's the leader, not shown in the poster here. So after the meeting with Cyrus and everything. So we don't really know what happens with Cleon. Last we see Cleon is he gets jumped by the Riffs, which is Cyrus's gang. He's presumed dead, technically, at this point, so we're not really sure what becomes of him. Given the fact he's not shown anymore in the movie after he gets jumped. So my questions were, for Swan, it was more of a where does he go from here? Does he take over as leader of the Warriors? Or does he stay war chief? Maybe he takes over and takes the Warriors to a next level with the gang life, because now that the Riffs cleared him of shooting Cyrus, maybe they decided to bring them under their wing a little bit more, give them a little more power with the gangs, kind of like a, hey, we're sorry we did this to you guys, make up for it. Or maybe Cleon's alive and then they move forward and they become bigger and better than they ever were. Like that was one of the main things I was curious about, is what happens with that past that. But yeah, so Swan's character is very interesting. Doesn't say a whole lot in the film, but you can tell he's definitely a leader. All these guys do flock to him knowing that he's the war chief, so he can definitely fight his way through any situation he gets into, and you can tell he has the respect of the rest of the warriors. Ajax, who's also not in the film. Ajax is a definite character. He's kind of the hothead, like an enforcer of the gang. His character, I always kind of wonder what happens with him too. He falls into a sting operation. There's a police lady sitting on a bench. She kind of entraps him, saying, "Hey, you wanna hook up?" And he says, "Yeah." Of course, he ruins it and gets really aggressive, and then of course he gets himself arrested. So now, my only thing was what happens with Ajax, especially right now with the cops thinking the Warriors killed, Cyrus and, have a beef with the Riff. So does he get cleared of these? Do they just stick him in jail because he's a gang youth? Or does he get out and, in the aftermath of what happens, being that Cleon might be dead, the gang kind of left leaderless, and he wanted to challenge for Warlord during the movie. So who knows? I do see him coming out and being, no, I want to be the leader. He wants to run the Warriors. He's a very high-strung, hot-headed character. So I definitely see him causing some rifts, pun intended, within the gang, saying that he should be leading them, probably shouldn't follow Swan. His way is the better way. So that would have been interesting to see what happens with that dynamic between Ajax and Swan, given the fact that the Warriors need a new leader now. In fact, if Cleon is actually gone. As far as the other warriors you see here, you got Vermin, Rembrandt, Cowboy, it's just more of a, what becomes of them two. Do they just stay with the Warriors after this, or did this kind of scare them straight in a sense to where they're, they go, you know what, maybe this isn't for me. I'm going to go who knows, back to school, go get a job, something like. I'm wondering if this kind of scared any of them straight to where they decided that this life wasn't for them, or maybe they double down with the Warriors and try to take it to another level. Again, we don't know. I think the Riffs probably would have taken the Warriors under their wing as an apology and kind of given them a little bigger piece of the city, or made them a bigger part of what they were going to do. Now as far as in the Riffs, I was wondering with the Riffs, where do the Riffs go from here? Clearly they have an infrastructure plan. So, Cyrus is dead. They have a new leader that steps up. So, but his main purpose was finding the Warriors or finding who killed Cyrus and handling that. So now that that's done, does he keep going on and go with Cyrus's plans? Does he take all 100 gangs, unite them and take over the city and kind of go to war with the cops and, everyone else in the city? So I'm curious to see if that actually does happen moving forward, because they kind of wanted to take over everything. They wanted the mob out of there. They wanted the police out of there. They wanted to run the city, and they had the people to do so. So I'm curious if that actually ever did take place. But yeah, that's where it just goes in, with the Warriors as a whole. What would have happened with them? Did they just break up after that, or do they all double down and kind of partner with the Riffs and get a good piece of the city, since they really want to take over the city? And being that they kind of battled a couple other gangs throughout the ways, and now all these gangs know that these guys don't mess around. So that just would have been pretty cool to see if all that still would have came to plan after the fact. And then lastly too, the rogues. You had Luther. Luther was the one that shot Cyrus. At the end, they find out that Cyrus was shot by Luther. So they kind of, the Riffs take Luther away, and again, I'm gonna say he's presumed dead, because I'm pretty sure they weren't too happy with the fact that he killed their leader. But moving past this, I'm curious with the rogues, do they, harbor anything, for the Warriors, for the Riffs after this? Because they kind of started all this by blaming the Warriors on the shooting of Cyrus. So do they find a new leader? Do they try to go back after the Warriors because they want revenge, or do they go after the Riffs? Are they outcasts in the gang community now because they were part of the, the 100 gangs? So maybe they get kind of kicked out, and then maybe they want to fight their way back. I'm sure they would have tried to retaliate in some way, shape, or form. Or maybe they wouldn't have. Maybe they all just would have disbanded and gone away after the events, because Luther does kind of lead them astray. So, again, tell me what you guys think. If you have any comments, concerns, shoot me a comment, shoot me a DM. Or if you have any other movies you'd like me to go over what next, let me know. Until next time, take care, guys.